Hey there, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do a segment called Ask an Agent. And in this segment, I'll just be answering some questions that are normally asked to me either at conferences or sometimes I do these Q&As live. As always, if you guys have any questions that you'd like to see answered, please comment below and I'll make sure to address them in my next video. So let's get started. 5 questions for each video. So the first question is, what do you look for in a query letter? I'll do another video on actual query letter writing and what you should put in there. But for right now, what I look for in a query is first and foremost, what is the story? You know, is it something that I think I can sell? So knowing the genre, hopefully the author has included comp titles, so I know kind of what audience they're trying to reach with this particular submission. Also, the word count is really important to me because if the book is too short or too long, that might be a tough sell or not appropriate for my contacts. Also, obviously, the book description, you know, what is the book about? Is this something that I'm interested in? And then finally, I am curious about the author's bio. Specifically, if they're writing nonfiction, I really want to know what the platform is, what their reach is, and if this particular project is something that people are looking for from this author. So with nonfiction, the brand is super important. The platform is super important. With fiction, not as much. I mean, of course, if the author has a platform, that really is helpful for me to sell. And if the sales are good, that's even better. But, you know, if you're a debut writer and the story's really good, as long as there's a market for it, you don't necessarily have to have a huge platform. That's something you can build up as the book, you know, is being ready to be published. Next question. Should an author self-publish before trying to get a publisher? I speak more about this in my first video, talking about why a lot of agents and editors don't take on self-published projects. But what I will say here is that if you aspire to be a published author, not self-published, but you are interested in traditional publishing, you should absolutely exhaust all of those options first. So give yourself a realistic timeline. I would say about 4 to 6 months as you prepare to self-publish your book. In that interim, you know, look for agents, look for editors, do everything that you can do to really pitch that project. And if there are no takers, you've got a lot of rejections, you know, people are just not seeing the book or understanding the appeal of what you're trying to do, then by all means, if you have the means to, the budget, the time, the skill to self-publish, then absolutely self-publish. But make sure to remember that once it's out there, and it's very difficult to circle back around and try to gain interest for a book that has already been published. So if you want to self-publish and that's something you want to do, please do. I'll be doing another video later on about self-published versus traditional publishing so that you guys can have the facts, at least the main, you know, differences between the two and decide what's best for you. But ultimately, if you want to be traditionally published, exhaust all those options on that particular project before self-publishing. Next question. What are some key things to look for when you're seeking an editor? So I'm going to speak to both types of editors. For the first type, if you're looking for a developmental editor to help you get your book into shape before pitching to agents and publishers, then you absolutely want to make sure they know what they're doing and they're not just an avid reader that is going to charge you a crap ton of money to read over your book and not really help you to fix it. So check out websites, check out other authors, maybe, you know, speak to other authors, ask them who they've been working with. Don't be afraid to ask for an editing sample or a list of publishers or authors that these editors have worked with, because the fact of the matter is developmental editing and line editing is a very extensive process. So be ready to pay, but make sure you're paying the right person. I can tell you in my experience, I've had many authors come to me after they've paid a fraud, and then they want me to decrease my price because they have paid someone else without doing the proper research. Sadly, that's not my problem. I don't mean to sound rude, but I have 20 years of experience in this business, and I have made lots of bestsellers. I've helped authors to get published. So, I'm charging what I'm worth, basically. And so you want to make sure you're paying the right person. So do your research. Don't be lazy. Definitely make the time to check into these editors, and don't be afraid to ask questions about their process, how they communicate, how they edit, okay? Now, if you're looking for an acquisitions editor that you want to take on your project, or even an agent, make sure that they love your book and they really see a vision for that book, so that you don't get lost in the sauce, especially if you are trying to publish with a larger publisher. You want to make sure that that editor really loves your work and it really is going to push it in-house, because that's how they get the publisher, the sales team, etc., excited about your book, is that they're excited. So don't beg an editor or an agent to work with you. If you're doing that, then 9 times out of 10 they are not the right fit for you, because you shouldn't have to beg anyone to work with you. At the end of the day, this is a business partnership, so you just want to make sure that your partner is the right partner, because ultimately they are making money off of your work and you are making money off of them. It's an exchange. So you should never have to beg anyone to work with you. If they don't care for the project or want to work with you, that's fine. Be humble, be professional. Thank you so much for your time, and move on. Question number 4, how long does it take an editor to edit a novel? Now, every editor works differently. It really depends on how thorough they are. It depends on how many times they have to read the manuscript to really get all of the information that they need from it to offer you the right guidance to fix it. So whether or not you're working with a freelance editor who is helping you get your book into shape, or you're working with your acquisitions editor in-house, it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, depending on how much work is needed per pass. Okay, now what I mean by per pass, that means they edit the book, they give it back to you. If you have to make revisions or changes and need another round of edits or another look, that's another pass. So it really just depends on how much work is needed on the manuscript and how fast the editor is in terms of really being able to, digest the information and then offer feedback to help you fix that story. So again, it could take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a month, couple of months, but usually about 4 to 6 weeks is the average time for a book between 50,000, 80,000 words. Again, if the book is really long or needs a lot of work, it could take a little bit longer. So when you are hiring that editor, or even when you're working with your new in-house editor, ask the question, hey, when can I expect edits back? How long does it take you to usually edit? What's your process? Some authors want to talk through edits. For me personally, I do not like discussing edits until I'm done, because oftentimes I may find early problems that have resolved themselves later on. So if I'm now telling you about these issues, you might get upset. You're trying to explain what you're trying to do, etc. And it just kind of interrupts the process. So for me personally, I do not discuss anything with the author until I'm completely done with edits, okay? And the last and final question for this episode is, should every author have an editor? Yes. 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 Even the best authors, and by best I mean best-selling authors, selling hundreds of thousands of copies, even they have an editor. You know why? Because you're too close to your project, and no one is perfect. So even the best of writers can use help fleshing things out, can make things clearer. So even if the writing itself is great, meaning there's no grammatical errors really. The book comes in pretty clean. The story itself probably needs work. And I'm sure with most of you, both could use some work, the story and the actual writing. Again, all of us can be better. None of us know everything. So to think that you can read over your own work, edit your own work, and put it out there, trust me, your readers are going to notice all the typos. They're going to notice all the story holes. And not to say that even when you have an editor, these issues won't happen. Again, it's wishful thinking to think that you can do everything on your own and put out a clean, really strong project. So I recommend for anyone out there watching this, whether you self-publish or are obviously traditionally published where you will have an editor, you absolutely need an editor. They are there to help make your story better. Of course, if there are things that you really feel strongly about and don't want to change, those are the type of things you talk through, figure out how to address them or fix them before putting your work out there. Because again, once it's out there, it's out there. And for a lot of you, this is your shot to really build your audience and fan base. So you want to make sure you're putting out the best product possible. Same thing if you're trying to get an agent or publisher. It does not hurt if you have the budget or to set aside a budget to work with an editor or a critique partner or a beta reader to really just make sure that your work is as strong as possible. So that's it, guys, for this session. Like I said, if you have any other questions that you would like answered, please comment below. I'm happy to answer these questions in my next video. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see you next time.